if we had kind of correct principles, right? This is a phrase that very few people in the door-to-door world understand because they've never heard it before. But if you have teach people correct principles, they govern themselves, kind of thing.
Yep.
Sarcasm.
I know.
I'm sure everyone's heard that about 9 million times.
Hey, who started that though? Come on, like there's got to be like an OG. Where did the quote come from?
I think it was Joseph Smith. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Cool.
There's only like 2 Mormons who sell door to door. So
good. I'm glad there's a few that might get the reference. Hey everybody, this is Sam Taggart with another episode of the DDD podcast. And if you haven't subscribed, make sure you hit the subscribe button, and then let's share this with the world, guys. Like, more people need to know about what sales training is available, what things are out there, what resources they have to improve their skills, improve their lives. So I have a really cool guest, a friend of mine, Scott Hyde, on here, who I know his brother Tony way more. And Tony's a little punk. He doesn't know how to play basketball, or he's pretty fat and doesn't know how to bike, and he's not that cool. And Scott's the better older brother that I never met really deep. Is Tony in the background? Please tell me he's back there.
Oh, no.
Oh, dang it. I thought I heard his voice, so I wanted to give him some love. But no, Scott's one of the founders of KOTA Energy, and they built a solar company and then decided, crap, there's no good tools out there for solar CRM and knocking apps and all that kind of stuff. So they decided to invest a lot of their profits into building a cool CRM and sales enablement tool called Sunobi. And they're one of our vendors at Door and had a lot of success there. And it's been really cool to see, people like Scott that's entrepreneurial minded and said, hey, let's go fix a problem. Let's go innovate. Let's go do things different. And it's been in the space for a while and has done some really cool stuff. So appreciate you having me you being on the show, man. And
thank you. No, it's an honor, man. Thanks. I know that a lot of like-minded people on this, and they're looking for a place to kind of join a tribe in the community. And it's good that you provide that opportunity for everyone to speak their voice and be heard.
Thanks, man. So running a solar company, the pros and cons, I know there's a lot of people in solar and business owners and starting solar companies that listen to this. I mean, what would you tell the guy that's like, I think I should start a solar company? Like, if you had to go back to that version of you, what would you tell him?
Do it. That's what I'd tell him. I mean, I think it would be pretty disingenuous for me to tell someone not to do what I did, as if somehow that was really great advice. I think if I'm coming from a place of moral authority of experience, what I'd say is, if you believe in yourself and you believe that you should do it and you can't do it, then do it. Everyone's journey to success is going to be different, and sometimes it isn't in the way you imagine. I think that as we started our company and started going towards solar, we didn't, the vision of what it would become evolved over time because we were learning about the industry, and our first vision of what we were going to be changed the more we learned. So the more education we got about the industry and what provided enterprise value and what would provide generational wealth, which was one of our main goals, then our visions changed because we realized that some things had to change in our business model to accomplish that. But what I would tell people that say that, like, I want to get started in solar, I want to start my own solar company, if it was an install or a sales engine or both, I'd say do it.
Love that.
Do it. It's gonna hurt. It's gonna be great, but do it.
Yeah. What were some of the unforeseen hurts that you weren't expecting what year did you guys start?
We started sales in 2018.
2018.
And then we started our install business literally the perfect time in right at the beginning of 2020. So it was impeccable timing with COVID.
Yep.
Yeah. That was an unforeseen hurt, COVID.
Hurt a lot of businesses. Thank goodness for SBA loans.
Yeah, no, I mean, when we began, we started out, we had some pretty concrete ideas about core values that we wanted to keep and we wanted to enable as we grew, and those have stayed the same. So become, create, give was our core values there, that we wanted to become a better person, create a better environment, give a better experience.
Love that.
And And we wanted to create the best rep experience on the planet, and then create the best customer experience on the planet. And that's really the driving force of all the decisions we made. So if we had kind of correct principles, right? This is a phrase that very few people in the door-to-door world understand because they've never heard it before. But if you teach people correct principles, they govern themselves, kind of thing.
Yes.
That's sarcasm.
I know.
I'm sure everyone's heard that about 9 million times.
Hey, who started that though? Come on, like there's got to be like an OG. Where did the quote come from?
I think it was Joseph Smith. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Cool.
There's only like 2 Mormons who sell door to door. So
good. I'm glad there's a few that might get the reference.
Yeah. Sorry about that. So the goal really was if we had these correct principles or ones that we really believed in, then letting people be creative in an application setting would be fine, and they'd be able to express themselves and find fulfillment, happiness in a way where we weren't being micromanaging every single aspect of the business. So, over time, we were trying to figure out what we actually want to accomplish. The second part of our goal there to create the best customer experience was really hard when we were handing that job over to an installer.
Yeah.
And as good as the installer could be, they were limited as well in their ability to deliver a great experience because they weren't controlling the sales experience. And so if they wanted something to come into their hands in a specific way and the sales organization disagreed with it, there's a natural conflict there that because you're not equally yoked or invested in the same outcome, truthfully, the byproduct of those 2 organizations competing is that the red line chase that everyone's going for becomes an issue, right? Like the sales organization is driving to get the lowest red line possible, and often failing to recognize the value of what makes a quality experience. And often that has nothing to do with the red line. I mean, it does, but it's not like usually the lowest price doesn't guarantee best product, right? I mean,
yeah. What have you found since, a lot of people don't underestimate. I think I watch sales organizations beat up these EPCs all the time, chasing this low red line. And I go, you realize you want them to have some meat on the bone as long as they're willing to invest in great project managers and great tech and great support and great, and it's like, if they don't have the resources to do so, and you're like, well, I could go do that better on my own. I'm like, dude, you don't realize the soft costs that come from employees and come from softwares and so I guess what would you tell or speak to that to kind of give some better insight on there?
I think that's really the crux of the issue in our space, to be honest, is this somewhat incestuous relationship that exists between sales and installs. They're eating each other for their own success, right? And that is the reason why we built Sunobi, is because of that, right? Like we didn't necessarily look at the EPCs like, hey, they're failing us and because they couldn't deliver something. They just, across the board, almost everyone that we come across, even now as we're interviewing and working with installers to bring them on the platform, there's a lack of tools that exist in the space that people have access to help them do their job. So you end up with this wide array of tools that people are using to try and accomplish the same task. And each of them, the tools are falling short in so many ways. And so you end up backfilling those places with human capital costs, which becomes very difficult to scale that, right? Like you have a sales org that's like, hey, I'm going to deliver 1,000 accounts a month to you. And the EPC is just like swallowing a boulder. And they're like, good night. There's no way I'm going to be able to handle that because I can't manage that on Google Sheets, or I can't manage it on Mondays, or I can't, you know what I mean? Like that. Not that those are bad products. They're fantastic products, but they're being kind of jimmy rigged for solar and they don't necessarily work for it. And so what ends up happening is you have a lot of missed opportunities and efficiencies that are trying to be fulfilled by human capital or personnel. And that only works to some extent. So when you go see some of these large EPCs or ones that are doing a significant volume, you go into their office and there's an army of people. That screams cost, right? Like when you have that many people doing a job that in some ways, and a lot of ways can be automated, that's a lot of cost. And so then when a sales org comes in and is like, dude, you got to give me a lower red line. At some extent, the EPC is going, well, which guy do you want me to fire to give you a lower red line? Because which project managers do you want me to get rid of to handle the amount of times you call in for a pipeline review?
Yeah.
I mean, if you poll, I'd be interested to see if you do this. If you polled your EPCs across the board and asked them, how much time do you think your project managers spend doing tasks that aren't project management related? Things like pipeline review calls. That's not a project manager task. That's just disseminating information that a sales organization can't easily digest.
Yeah,
right?
it's just like trying to relay information, not move projects. But it's like the sales guys in the dark because they're sitting there going, what the fuck is going on with my deal? Like, dude, why is it sitting there on the shelf for 3 months? And they're
upset, right? They're upset at the installer because I think the installer is doing a poor job. And the installer is like, look, in a lot of ways that information exists somewhere, but it's not in a place that's easily digestible for the sales org. And so they're trying to find it and they can't. And so they're calling into the EPC going, dude, where's Johnny's job at? Where's Jimmy at? And they're like, well, let me look. And their tool isn't sophisticated enough to help them understand where it is. And so they have to like walk down the hall and talk to the homeboy in permitting to ask him. And then he's going like, well, I got to call the municipality. And then it's like this relay game back and forth. And you're like, dude, I'll get back to you tomorrow. And nothing actually happens. So the project manager spends 6 hours a day chasing his tail, trying to get information back to a sales org, when if that stuff was just instantly pushed back to an organization, they knew it, they could do what they want to do, which is to go sell jobs and crush it. And an EPC can do what they want to do and like push jobs through the pipe.
Dude, I have so many people that I've talked to that have left the solar game simply because they're so sick of everybody promising 30-day installs and then feeling like they went and sold lights out for 3 weeks or 2 months. And then they were like, dude, I want to go back to selling pests or selling alarms or something else because it wasn't 6 months until, and then I had this deduction and I didn't even know that I wasn't getting this and I got that. And then I lost 75% of the commission because they charged me because supposedly they had to call the customer and do something. And you know what I mean? And I was just like, so your $70,000 commission check that you kept boasting, you're like, I made 70 grand this week or whatever, turned into 20. And you're like, oh, what's in your bank account? You know what I mean?
Or turned into zero because it never actually made it to roof.
Or never made it to roof. It's unbelievable how often I hear that story and it's just frustrating. Like, I'm like, okay, well.
So Sam, think about this, right? Here's some crazy stats that I don't know that people actually, I hope they know. In every of all the loans that are sold in solar, and I can only assume this is the case for PPAs, but all the loans that are sold in solar, close to 50% require a change order. That happens at the time of site survey or at the time of install. Something happens and there's an infield deviation, right? So close to 50% of all jobs require a change order. Now, some of those are simple and it's like, oh, we're gonna, it's $1,000 and the customer's gonna re-sign. But some of them are significant, like it's a new roof or it's an MPU that needs to be done, right? That process, for the most part, is not an automated process. So the HIA portion to re-sign and the loan docs to re-sign are not automated. There's a handful of things in the space that automate those depending on who the lender is. But as a whole, it's not an automated process. It's very antiquated. It's all manual. So if that requires the EPC to then go back to the salesperson to ask them to do a change order, and the salesperson then has to go back to the homeowner to get it done. And if that communication is insufficient in any way, or there's a lack of it, or it's terrible in any way, like that customer doesn't move. So when someone's like, yeah, there's not a 30-day install timeline. Well, at least 50% of the jobs that are being pushed through the pipe have a change order. And the change order timeline to get that done at a minimum is 2 weeks. That's the average in the industry. It's a minimum of 2 weeks, right? For it to even move somewhere. That means someone's not talking about it. Someone's not doing anything about it. It's just sitting. Now, sales is emotional. How many customers are willing to just hang tight for 2 weeks with no information and no progress updates? Like, that's why there's cancellations. That's why the numbers are too high. There's nothing that's automating those things to go through. Again, one of the reasons I'm plugging Sunobi left and right. That's why we built Sunobi.
Yeah. So where do they find Sunobi if they're interested in learning more? SUNOBI.
Yeah, SUNOBI app.com, or I think that we're actually putting up the website here pretty quick. We've been so stealthy about it that it's
kind of funny. I like it. I like your I'm gonna build the curiosity for a while and see what's up. I've liked your play, but no, it's cool. The guy from Grand Theft Auto that helps build Grand Theft Auto and the design, seeing it, I've seen it, and it's unlike any other CRM app experience that and I loved the approach. I really have. And so, I've built a couple tech companies myself, and one thing I can really appreciate is somebody that really thinks through the user experience and thinks through what's going to make this engaging, captivating, and want people to use versus looks like some ugly spreadsheet with some makeup on it. You know what I mean? Like, so
yeah, it's either a Windows 95 reboot or, you could, it's like, no one goes to be entertained to watch like old episodes of Alf on TV, or MASH or something. That's not what people want to hear. People want to go through an experience that's current with today's time. So Sunobi is intended to be, not technology that was back in the 80s. It should be something that we're using today. Yeah.
So where do you see the solar industry going in the next 3 to 5 years? I mean, obviously there's all these different legislation moves and NEM3, and you have all these different pushes, pros and cons. What's your take? What's your pulse on it?
I mean, I have nothing but excitement for it. Like, I think that I honestly feel like we're really just still at the very beginning of where solar is going to go. If we kind of look back on the history of how the world as a whole has changed, with industrial revolutions and things like that, like the way those things happen, there's a new form of energy, a new form of transportation, and a new form of communication. And
do you see it getting innovated in any way, like changing how it is currently set up, or what innovations do you foresee?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, because I'm in tech so much now, I think that the tech side is going to speed things up dramatically. I like what some of the other plays are to speed up AHJs and permitting and things like that. If we can get that streamlined across the United States, where permitting is the same across the board, we won't be looking at, sometimes you have these places where there's 3-month permitting times. If you can get it where it's all streamlined and the same, then we could actually get to a point where we're installing solar the same week you sell it. And I do think that the tech will get to that point where a rep will be able to sell a job and the same week will then be installed, just because of how much quicker we can get those pieces done.
Do you think people are going to get more savvy around it? Or is there going to be different purchasing style, financing styles? Like, what do you like, sales models that will change?
Sure. I mean, I can't predict those things. I love human ingenuity to begin with. So I think people that are, as a whole, are very creative, and they'll find ways, and where money is still good in solar, they'll find ways to maximize it. I do think there'll still be a continuation of consolidation. I think more and more companies will be purchased and swallowed up. I think batteries are going to be a huge deal in regards to NEM 3.0. I think that's the answer, is that I think, it got indefinitely delayed, that decision, which I wasn't necessarily surprised about that. We've been through 3 of these already in California, so it hasn't been shocking to us. Like, I've had a lot of our reps go like, dude, what's going on with NEM 3.0? I'm like, dude, it's going to be fine. We've already done this 3 times. It's going to be fine.
Yeah.
But what will happen along the way, in my opinion, is that the pricing for buying back your kilowatt hours will be decreased, so that in commensurate time as batteries become more affordable. So I think that as that pricing model gets less attractive for homeowners because of the NEM agreements, the pricing for batteries will become more accessible, and you'll become more and more autonomous from the grid. That will make it more easily available for people to get batteries. And so I think that's probably one of the next changes. You'll end up seeing a lot of people moving towards a different sale tactic, which would be, maybe I just offer batteries and I go back and retrofit batteries to homes, or sales orgs and installers are going back to their existing customers and retrofitting batteries. Sunrun, of course, made the move. That's why they bought Vivint. They wanted to create their own utility company basically out of batteries. Makes sense. I get it. I think utility companies themselves will also move in that direction, where they'll try and become more like Sunrun is. Will be offering solar plus storage to take the burden off their grid. Like, that would be a smart move if you're a utility company, but they historically haven't been the brightest. So who knows?
They're not listening to this podcast, unfortunately. Just kidding.
Maybe.
I'm curious to see how utility companies adapt. You have like that in Utah, you have like the Blue Power or Sky Power, whatever, that is like hey, buy like cleaner energy for an extra $10 a month or whatever. You know what I mean? It's interesting to see utilities responses, and and obviously you have other forms of renewable energy like wind and nuclear, and you have other energy sectors that are not just solar. I'm curious to see how those innovate and play a space into bigger solar projects, supplying the grid. So be interesting.
No, it'll be interesting to see what happens. I think that a lot of there'll still be innovation. I'm excited to see what those things are, and I don't think one of the things I guess I would respond to that seems to come up in the industry is that when the ITC expires, solar will also expire. There is a sentiment that exists in the industry that this is a short-term play. It's a gold rush kind of thing. And I would just say, for those who believe that, I hope you still believe it. Leave the rest of the space for us, because this isn't going anywhere. Like, I think that we're in the next revolution of power, and there's going to be a massive distribution of wealth. And if those who want to leave after the ITC expires leave, please do.
I love it. No, and I trust me, I see two sides. I see a lot of the people that are nervous and they're just like, make hay while the sun shines, guys. I'm like, make hay while the sun shines. That's a dumb question. The sun's always going to be shining, and solar is always going to be collecting sun. So therefore,
that whole sentiment, I feel like if there's people who are buying into that, their leadership is perpetuating that problem. And I think that's mainly because they're a company that probably sells strictly one type of product that relies on that. To be fair, there are some states that the utility companies, the costs are so low that without the subsidy of the ITC, that it becomes more difficult. But it also assumes that pricing is going to stay the same.
Yeah,
nothing's going to become more competitive. And it's like, well, if we increase efficiencies with soft costs like we're talking about, then prices do come down. And you don't think we can find a way to shave 30% or 26% off of what currently
instead of reps making 60 to 100 grand a month, maybe if they're making 20 to 30 grand a month.
I mean, that's just it. Like, and I'm all for it. Like, I don't want to speed that up. I don't want to speed up the reps decrease in commission. I want them I want to get paid as much as possible, as long as possible. But there's other things that will also change the cost structure. And as those change, we can't look at one variable.
No, it's going to be a small piece.
That's the only variable.
Yeah, there's tons of pieces. Yeah. Well, I guess what advice, we kept this kind of business owner centric. So I guess we can keep on that thread as we kind of wrap up. I know I try to keep these to 20, 30, 40 minutes. And I guess last question before, and I know your time's super valuable, and I appreciate all the nuggets. And guys, Scott's the man. Like, there's a lot of people out in this industry, and I'm like, Scott's been doing it right and freaking crushing, by the way. So I just want to give you props, and watching you guys grow. And I kind of get to hear through Tony just like the wins and the losses and the wins and the innovate, and everything. And it's just fun. It's fun to watch you guys through the last few years. And but I guess, what advice would you give that new solar company owner that is trying to recruit and trying to build and trying to kind of get his feet wet? Maybe he's been in it 6 months. He's like, man, I'm getting my face kicked in. Like, what advice would you give him?
Yeah. Man, that's a tough question. Because I want to answer from like a selfish KOTA perspective or a selfish Sunobi perspective, but I'll try not to, and just answer from a genuine human being perspective. I guess what I'd say is, don't quit. Like, don't quit. There's anything really worthwhile requires some sacrifice. And, because I live in California and I've been a Laker fan my whole life, also LeBron fan for anyone who's a Jazz fan. I'm sorry, but I love LeBron. I'm talking to Mitch, who's in my office and flipping me off at the moment, but
I like LeBron. He's a man.
Anyway, as a longtime Laker fan, and I love Kobe as well. When Kobe passed, everyone was talking about all these things that Kobe said. And one of the things that I loved the most of what he said was, you have to fall in love with the grind. And if you're working hard because you want the destination, and that's your end goal, is the destination, then when the grind starts and it gets hard, you'll quit because you haven't fallen in love with the grind. If you love the grind and you love the process of getting to the destination, then the destination is inevitable. So that guy who's 6 months in and who's struggling and trying to figure out how to make this thing work, and he's got his face kicked in and lost his reps or lost his profit margin he thought he had, that is part of the grind. And there's nothing wrong with that. That doesn't mean you're a failure. It doesn't mean that you're not meant for this. That's not what it means. What it means is you are doing your part to be successful, and you're learning how to become the success that you want to be. The grind is what makes you amazing. And if you fall in love with that piece, then the rest of it all becomes an easy and an inevitable destination. So that's what I tell the guy: don't quit, grind.
I love that. And I think so many people don't see, they see some of these bigger companies that have been around for a while and had some real success. But it's like, dude, if you would have shadowed me with a camera for the first 2 years, you'd have been like, oh yeah, there's an element of frustrated phone calls, reps that you thought were going to be great that backstab you, like moments of just crying to your wife at night. You know what I mean? Like, and I think that a lot of that never gets exposed. They just see what's on Instagram and they're like, oh, well, it's all rainbows and butterflies, driving nice cars and stuff. It's like, no, it's not like that. So
no, in fact, I would say that most of the time that kind of grind is a very lonely journey. Like, it's not the grind is itself to get where you want to be isn't usually accompanied by a lot of people and fanfare. It's done for the most part in the quiet solitude of like your own home or in your own office by yourself. You still have people that are in your entourage, the people that you rely on and trust, and they're part of your inner circle and that you rely on for those things. But as an individual, that's what we're asking about. As an individual, not as a company, as an individual, like, there's still lots of quiet, lonely moments that you have to decide yourself if you're going to grind, not if someone else is picking you up to do it. Like, you've got to make that decision on your own, by yourself, crying in the bathroom, whatever the hell it is that you're doing, and decide, I'm better than this particular obstacle. I'm bigger and better than this.
Love that. Well, dude, Scott, thanks so much for being on the show. This was awesome.
Sure, thank you.
You got some value out of this, guys. Leave a review, share this with somebody, and let's keep on trekking. Don't quit, people. We'll see you.
All right, man. Talk soon.